Welcome to Bloodbath and Beyond. Today we review the Norwegian zombie film Dead Snow 2, Red vs. Dead.
Dead Snow 2 was directed by Tommy Wirkola. It stars Vegar Hoel, Ørjan Gamst, and Martin Starr. This film picks up where the last one ended. The zombies now decide they need to complete the mission that they were given by Hitler before they were killed, so they head off to a town to try and ransack it and murder all the people living there. Martin, who cut off his own arm in the first movie to stave off the infection, has now had the arm of the zombie leader grafted onto his. He decides that only he can stop this army, and so, with the help of some American zombie squad members, he travels to raise the Russian army from the dead to help him. So, what did we like?
I really enjoyed the humor in this film. They weren't taking themselves serious. It was very evident with how over the top every character was in this film.
They were able to experiment a little and get away with a lot more than they could had this been taken a lot more seriously. For example, kids getting killed, and they couldn't get away with that kind of stuff if they were trying to go for a serious film. So it was nice. And I mean, we got some good gags out of it as well.
I think one of the best gags is when Martin was raising his first zombie, just how that zombie was dying over and over and over again. It just reminded me of Renfield from Dracula Dead and Loving It. Just everything bad would always happen, but he would always come back because he was undead.
I liked how this film took what Dead Snow 1 started with and what people loved about it, namely the ending massacre scene, and pretty much stretched it to the entire length of the film. It was all out a ride, and it was interesting the whole way through. It was very entertaining.
I really loved how everything looked. The cinematography in this film was fantastic, surprisingly so. I didn't expect some of the cool camera tricks that they used. They did some push-pulls. They did just a lot of really, really unique shots. I don't know, everything was gorgeous. I think all of the fight choreography, especially when the big battle happens at the end, of course we have two zombie hordes fighting each other, and it was fucking phenomenal.
Well, what this really boils down to is this film had amazing practical effects and gore and special effects.
Yeah, it was one of the few films that had kills that didn't seem like, okay, that's been done before. It had a lot of moments that had us just whoa, just genuinely surprised us, and it was fantastic to see a genre like this still being able to do that. So why don't we talk about some of those kills in our favorite kills?
My favorite kill is when Martin is just realizing how to control his Nazi arm, and he goes on a rampage and starts killing a bunch of zombies, and he just clobbers this one guy and just punches right through his head, and it was fucking great. And it's followed up with a punch through the stomach of someone and holds out the heart and then needlessly smashes it onto a bus.
My favorite kill happens during the fight inside the tank. One of our American zombie squad members is trying to stop the tank. They've got a brutal struggle, and he's finally on top of the zombie. Previously, some shotgun shells have spilled out, so he grabs a couple and shoves them in the guy's mouth, and he's got a hammer, and he just spams on the back of it, and his head just explodes.
My favorite kill is when Martin's in the hospital, and there's this 10-year-old boy who's helping him out, and he just goes to push the kid out of the way, but he throws him completely out of the window. He wants to do chest compressions to try and bring him back to life. And as he pushes down, you just see blood splatter all up in his face.
It's like those old Pizza Pocket commercials. Now it's time for our dislikes.
My biggest complaint about this film was the pacing. It was kind of built up to be kind of a non-stop action movie, but there wasn't as much action as you'd think. There's a lot of little points of exposition that were kind of dragged on a little unnecessarily, maybe to add some humor into it when we're talking to cops. We went to the cop station 3 or 4 times, which didn't need to happen. Even with the zombie squad members going to the marsh, they were trying to lure the zombies towards them and kill a bunch of zombies. There was too much of a build-up with not enough of an impact for that to be cool.
It pains me to say this because I'm a huge Martin Starr fan. The fact that the zombie squad, in my opinion, didn't need to be in this film. We didn't need people from out of the country coming in. They could have easily had some teenagers or college students who were zombie fans in that country.
Well, it was self-aware and it was funny at points. They tried so hard to make a bunch of Star Wars jokes none of them hit.
I was expecting something like the Hoth systems, but this is more like Endor.
At one point in the film, it seemed like there was way too many subplots. We had Martin off to get the Russians. We had one trying to harry the Germans. We had the police working on something else. And it seemed like they were trying to do too many things at once. I thought it was distracting. Now it's time for our final thoughts and ratings. Dead Snow 1 introduced us to the whole Nazi zombie thing. It was creepy. They had the zombies in the shadows, and they did it very well. It was scary. The second Dead Snow, we're gonna just do as much as we can with as many kills and as much gore as we can, and it was so much fun. You don't really need to think about this film too much. The humor was there. Some of it fell flat, but mostly it was just a really funny film. The gore was fantastic. The fight scenes were very well done, and it was a unique concept and take on the genre. So I'm gonna give it 4 intestines used to siphon gas out of 5.
Dead Snow 2 was a pretty fun time. There was tons of brutal killing, some great practical effects, and it didn't take itself too seriously. Unfortunately, a lot of the jokes that they did throw in there weren't that funny, and a lot of the humor was pretty dry for how unserious the film was. And I know this sounds weird, but I think they should have just left the story at the door to begin with, and they should have just had non-stop killing, because the pacing was really, really off in this film. But in any case, I'm gonna give this 3.5 babies sucking from the teat of a tank shell out of 5.
Dead Snow 2 is just one of those films that you can sit down with the guys, not have to think about it, and just watch some brutally awesome kills. But in my opinion, it's not as stellar as everyone's gonna think it is, because without a story or them trying to make a story and not hitting their marks, it kind of takes you away from it and it doesn't fit in with the rest of the film. I really wish they either had no story at all or at least had some kind of story that was consistent and met with the pacing. So that being said, I'm gonna give this film 3 shortcuts upstairs out of 5.
As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film, because I know a lot of you guys have seen it. It was recommended a ton of times on our top 10 list for 2014. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay updated with everything we're doing here on Bloodbath and beyond.